and that is the state of emergency declaration that we've had in place since about the first part of March, I think around March 6th or 7th, as I recall. This being in a state of emergency allows certain things to happen otherwise would not be able to. It gives more power, certainly, to the governor and the executive branch. This emergency state declaration will expire tonight at midnight. The state of emergency is designed to give legal status to help us, in fact, doing things quickly, out of the norm. And normally we have a policy that's created by the legislatures. They gather together at a session and take time to debate, have committee hearings, have input from the public, and make some decisions on policy. But this declaration of emergency allows the governor to be very quick in making a response under an emergency type situation, which is understandable, where we need to respond immediately. And we're allowed to do that as we kind of suspend the rules for a period of time. Typically, that's 30 days. And typically, when we have an emergency, it could be an earthquake. We've had fire, we've had floods, we've had microbursts, many hurricanes, as it were, here. It would last the duration of the event, maybe a day or two or three. The emergency takes place over maybe a few days or a few weeks, but then it's over. Our statutes do anticipate, though, a longer time type of emergency. In the statute, it talks about, in fact, an epidemic. A pandemic just means a worldwide epidemic. So the anticipation by those who created the laws way back when said, we know that there's going to be needs for emergency declarations, and epidemics have been included in that, which are a longer duration. So this is not as unusual as sometimes we would think. I understand the concern about how long does emergency last and when do we get back to normal practice. And the legislature and I have had those discussions the last few days. And I think it's a worthwhile, in fact, discussion to have. And we'll see where that leads. Some of the things that we recognize right now today is that, one, the emergency declaration will expire tonight at midnight. The legislature said they do not want to renew that. We do know that we still have challenges with the COVID-19. People are still dying. The infection rates are still too high and growing. I like the trends that we have, but still we have challenges to some of our minority communities have a disproportionate amount. We're concerned about making sure our healthcare system still does not get overwhelmed with a surge. The capacity of our hospital system, the stockpile of PPEs I've already talked about a bit, and do we have the ability to have withstand a future surge of infections as we would have a need for PPEs. And we're just starting the school year. So this is kind of an inflection point that gives a desire to pause and see, let's see what happens. So we don't, in fact, create a serious problem that we cannot address in a timely fashion. We're not out of the woods yet on this pandemic, even though we're making some good headway, I believe. Therefore, I'm announcing today, right now, that I will establish a new state of emergency that will take effect tonight, immediately upon the expiration of the current state of emergency. And by the way, just for information, all states in America today have an emergency declaration in place, including the federal government. So if we were not to do this, we would be the only state of the 50 that would not have an emergency declaration in place for our state during this pandemic. Again, I think the very nature of a pandemic, again, it's unpredictable. And until we get a vaccine, we'll probably have that kind of a situation. We're certainly getting into more normal opportunities. We don't have to have quite the knee-jerk reaction that we've had in the past, and response time does lengthen out. But we certainly don't want to risk losing help from the federal government by not having an emergency declaration. At the top of that list is the funding for our National Guardsmen. We've been doing a lot of work and testing and contacting and tracing of those who have the virus. That's a $13 to $14 million bill that the federal government is helping us to pay under the current state of emergency declaration. But other monies from FEMA, monies that will be used by our health department, monies from our workforce services. We're requesting money of $445 million on lost wages assistance. Our SBA, Small Business Administration, we just met with the administrator yesterday. Again, the list goes on and on of what we would potentially risk losing some federal funds that we're entitled to. Again, most of that money generated from the people of Utah. So I just think it's wise and prudent that we, in fact, create and start a new state of emergency, which again we'll present. We've already notified the legislature about this, talked with legislative leadership yesterday afternoon, and we'll in fact file that and have that in place to take effect immediately upon the expiration of the current emergency declaration. So with that, again, I think we're in good shape overall. Our goals are still the same. We want to protect the lives and the health and welfare of our people, which includes not only protecting their lives, but their livelihoods, as we said many times. And we understand that it is the responsibility of all of us to work together to get that to happen at its optimal level.